From the Ministry of the Presidency in Georgetown, this is This Week with the President.
Welcome to This Week with the President, a news magazine which provides you with an in-depth look at the policies, programs and work of the President of Guyana in his quest to realize the good life for all Guyanese. I'm your host, Granger. Thank you for joining us. In the highlights this week, pettiness and prejudices hindering development of the local level, President Granger says. President Granger proposes meeting with Attorney General to provide legal clarifications requested by opposition leader for GCOM's chairman. Trafficking in persons perpetrators will be prosecuted with the full force of the law. And President Granger calls on banking sector to help address hinterland and other unserved areas. And every child, despite challenges, can be empowered to achieve. President Granger pledges support to Ptolemy Reed Rehabilitation Center. These stories and more are This Week with the President. After an absence of over 2 decades, local government elections returned to the country on March 18, 2016. This was a campaign promise made by the coalition government. With the local government elections came the establishment of 3 new towns and the election of mayors and new councils to serve their constituencies. But even with the powers to transform the country's 10 administrative regions, President Granger believes that unhealthy bipartisanship is standing in the way of growth and development. The head of state said that the regional democratic councils must work in tandem with other arms of government if they are to develop their regions and the lives of the Guyanese people they have been elected to serve. The head of state expressed these sentiments after regional officials from the opposition-controlled RDCs and municipalities boycotted the inaugural meeting of the National Regional Development Consultative Committee, NRDCC, which was held at the Marriott Hotel.
RDCs therefore possess enormous power to do good, if only they could overcome the pettiness and the prejudices which we see on display today by the absence of the PPP-dominated regional democratic councils.
The President explained that local democratic organs are by no means ornamental and are not central government appendages, but rather they are an integral part of the national government, which has 3 tiers.
The first, consisting of central government itself. The second, consisting of the regional government. And the third, consisting of the councils at the local level, municipalities, neighborhood, and village level. Guyana's rich resources will remain underexploited and the country will remain underdeveloped unless all 3 tiers are able to work together. Guyana will not fulfill its promise of providing a good life to all of its citizens unless it becomes a country of economically robust and resilient regions, prosperous municipalities, and productive neighborhoods. Local democratic organs can fulfill their mandate to help the country to achieve its fullest potential. First, however, their capacity must be enlarged and their competence must be enhanced by fostering consultation within communities, cooperation with other regions, coordination with state agencies, authorities, and commissions, and collaboration with the central government.
The President's comments came after Minister of Communities, Mr. Ronald Bolkan, informed him that on Thursday evening that he has received letters from a number of regional chairpersons indicating that they will not be participating in the day's activities as they are concerned that this committee poses the danger of impinging on the constitutional authority of the RDCs and municipalities.
They were fearful that their participation could be seen as endorsing this activity or this initiative, which is a consultative committee designed to bring together all of our regions with a view of strengthening regional administration and strengthening the role of our regional democratic councils in both the management as well as development of their respective regions.
The minister said that the arguments that were advanced are specious and provocative. He noted too that given that these officials are public officers, their actions have shown a certain degree of insubordination. However, he said that notwithstanding this setback, central government will continue to extend the hand of cooperation to all of the democratic institutions.
And we will not flinch or resile from our responsibility to engage with all of these organs in the delivery of effective governance throughout our country.
Speaking on the geographic challenges to good governance, the President illustrated this by pointing out that Upper Takatu, Upper Essequibo Region 9 alone is larger than many countries in the hemisphere. Intergovernmental synergy, which is necessary to overcome these challenges, can be fostered through the NRDCCC.
A country as vast and diverse as Guyana requires all three tiers of government to work together for the public good: the national, the regional, and the local. Ladies and gentlemen, Guyana's development agenda depends on strong regions. The regions are the roots of economic growth. The development of the regions must be stimulated by capital towns. And last year we saw that we created 3 capital towns, each one capable of providing the full gamut of quality public services. We must enhance their capability to deliver education, energy from renewable sources, law enforcement, health, housing, water supply, immigration, taxation, and the registration of births, deaths, and businesses. All of these are needed for human development. All of these can be provided by our regions, and particularly our capital towns.
The NRDCC was established to ensure that the RDCs, the NDCs, municipalities, village councils, and other regional stakeholders meet to discuss and plan for regional development. It is a consultative mechanism and cannot usurp the functions of any of the local democratic organs. The President believes that this committee will empower elected officials and encourage residents to enrich the economies of their regions. The President said that the regions must be stimulated by the capital towns and reiterated his vision for every region to have its own aerodrome, high court, police divisional headquarters, radio and television stations, referral hospital, stadium, and other important infrastructure. An ideal candidate for the position of the chairman of the critical organization, such as the Guyana Elections Commission (GECOM), must possess the qualities of impartiality, integrity, and intelligence, qualities similar to what is expected of a former or current judge, as is defined in Article 1612 of the Constitution. This is President David Granger's view as the debate continues across the political arena with regard to the list of nominees which was submitted by leader of the opposition, Mr. Barrett Jagdeo. The list, which was deemed unacceptable by President Granger after it was found that none of the candidates satisfied the requirements as is stipulated in Article 1612 of the Constitution.
We must not trivialize the appointment. The reason why the Constitution is worded in such a way is to ensure that the nominee, or all of the nominees, are persons of intelligence, persons of integrity, and persons of impartiality. That is why they put so much emphasis on somebody who is either a judge or who's qualified to be a judge. But they want somebody who possesses those 3 qualities: the impartiality, the integrity, and of course the intelligence. To be a judge, you should possess those 3 qualities.
The opposition leaders list consisted of Major General retired Norman McLean, attorney and political analyst Mr. Christopher Ram, former chairman of the Private Sector Commission Mr. Ramesh Duku, Peace and Governance Consultant Mr. Lawrence Lachman Singh, businesswoman Ms. Ryan Shaw, and Professor Dr. David Rose. Article 1612, which states that the chairman of the Elections Commission shall be a person who holds or who has held office as a judge of a court having unlimited jurisdiction in civil and criminal matters in some part of the Commonwealth, or a court having jurisdiction in appeals from any such court, or who is qualified to be appointed as any such judge. Though the list provided does contain the name of Mr. Christopher Ram, who was admitted to the bar in 2009, this is the first time a senior counsel or person qualified to be a judge or a former or current judge has not been included on a list submitted by an opposition leader. After requesting and reviewing their qualifications, the head of state deemed them unacceptable for the role according to the Constitution of Guyana. The opposition leader then requested clarification, to which President Granger has responded by referring him to the Attorney General, Mr. Baster Williams, in an effort to ensure clarification on the legal interpretation of Article 1612, so that there is no misinterpretation that could cause further misunderstanding on the matter.
At this point in time, I feel it's purely constitutional, it's purely legal, and I think the shortest course, the best course, would be for legal minds to engage the issue. So I don't feel that a non-lawyer like myself should engage a non-lawyer like the leader of the opposition, because there may be further misunderstanding. So I think the quickest route is for two legal minds to interpret the clause, the article of the Constitution, and let's get on with it. I would like to bring this matter to a swift conclusion. It's been going on too long, and I believe this is the quickest route. That's why I did.
The head of state made it clear that his only interest in that a name emerges out of this consultative process that matches the requirements of the Constitution and is acceptable to both the government and the opposition, and more so the people of Guyana. He noted that the Constitution was very clear on the required qualifications, and it is obvious that what the drafters of the document had in mind was someone who had arrived at the position of a judge, as it is expected that that person would have been someone who possesses the qualities of impartiality, integrity, and intelligence. President Granger said that the Constitution is worded that way to ensure that all the nominees meet a standard of criteria that would allow them to function impartially in the role, and that is why so much emphasis was placed on either a judge or someone who is qualified to be a judge.
So it's not any other person. I think that is what is misleading many of the commentators. They feel I can choose any other person. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to choose somebody who is fit to be a judge and who could discharge the functions of office of the chairman of the Election Commission with impartiality, with integrity, and with intelligence. Some writers seem to be putting so much emphasis on any other fit and proper person. Fit and proper means you have to possess those three qualities.
The president lamented that the delay in finalizing a candidate will have an impact on the work of the commission, particularly since preparations have to commence for the holding of the 2018 local government elections.
Because we have to make preparations for local government elections and other businesses being held up.
Is there a time frame in mind, sir?
The quicker the better. I did not expect the process to last this long. The process could take place within a day or two, once the list is in conformity with the Constitution.
He added that he is in no rush to name any names, but is more concerned with the consultative process as outlined by the Constitution that satisfy the requirements therein and is acceptable to all stakeholders. The head of state made it clear that he has no name in mind for the post, but remains confident that an appropriate name will emerge from the dialogue.
The candidate will emerge out of the dialogue between the leader of the opposition and myself. He has the initiative under the Carter formula to propose a list of 6 names, which are not unacceptable to me. So that's where we are, but I don't have a candidate in mind. I have a qualification in mind. I want someone who satisfies the constitutional requirement. That's all I want.
So, Mr. President, if the dialogue goes nowhere, what happens?
Well, the Constitution is clear that once the leader of the opposition fails to submit a list of persons who are not unacceptable, I will have to make a choice. But I would like to choose someone who is acceptable to both sides and who the general public is satisfied with. So that is my desire, but I'd like to do it quickly.
The Constitution states that if the leader of the opposition fails to submit a list as provided for, the President shall appoint a person who holds or has held office as a judge of a court having unlimited jurisdiction in criminal and civil matters in some part of the Commonwealth, or a court having jurisdiction in appeals from any such court, or who is qualified to be appointed as any such judge. Attorney at law Mr. Maxwell Edwards, in a letter dated January 20, 2017, to the Guyana Chronicle, explained the legal interpretation of Article 1612. He wrote in his letter, and I quote, "What I understand the Constitution makers and draftsmen to have said in Article 1612 is, inter alia, that a judge is a classic or perforce a fit and proper person, and any other person not being a judge, magistrate, or lawyer must be a person with the signal hallmark or attribute of a judge, a disposition of impartiality and neutrality." End of quote. He went on to add that because neither the president or the opposition leader can determine whether a person has the quality of impartiality, they must rely on the record of the nominees, and this quality is one that is expected to have been demonstrated by a judge or a former judge during his career. Mr. Edwards went on to add in the letter that, and I quote, "It must be a matter of sheer common sense and constitutional logic that if the draftsman of Article 1612 did not intend the preceding special or specific wording as a judge to have any limitive or restrictive effect or impact on the generality of the words any other, nothing would have been easier or simpler than for them to have drafted Article 1612 without those special reference words vis judge or person qualified to be a judge. They simply could have drafted shall be a person to be appointed by the President, but they did not. So there must have been some significant constitutional purpose in such specificality of the word." End of quote. Security and the safety of the Guyanese citizens is one of the top priorities of the David Granger-led administration. While the administration has had to tackle entrenched criminal activity after years of neglect in the security sector, gains have been made over the past few months as increased training for the Guyana Police Force, boasting of the Criminal Investigations Division, the reintroduction of mounted police, aerial surveillance, and the soon-to-be implemented UK Security Sector Reform Action Plan. While successes have been recorded, there is still more that needs to be done to ensure that Guyanese are assured of a safe nation. A challenge has been trafficking in persons, given Guyana's inability to man its borders in remote areas. But the head of state is determined to win the war against the trafficking in persons, and as the country launched the National Plan of Action for Prevention and Response to Trafficking in Persons 2017-2018, the Guyanese leader made it clear that he is committed to reversing the indifference shown by the previous administration towards the incidence of that crime.
Trafficking in persons is a serious crime and a grave violation of human rights. It's a crime against humanity. It constitutes a form of modern-day slavery. It is an affront to civilized society, a denial of human rights, particularly of freedom from human servitude. Trafficking in persons, despite its abhorrent character, as you've heard, is one of the fastest growing criminal enterprises in the world today. It has transnational dimensions. The International Labour Organization estimates that more than 21 million persons are victims each year, victims of forced labor.
President Granger said that the plan of action, which was compiled by the Ministerial Task Force on Trafficking in Persons, is a tangible demonstration of the government's commitment to confront fearlessly and fully this abhorrent crime.
Guyana, as Minister Ali has said, seeks to provide a good life for all of its citizens. That good life includes protecting vulnerable citizens from the threat of servitude, the threat of sexual exploitation, and the threat of forced labor. Victims of trafficking in persons need protection They're often helpless. They're often afraid to speak out. They often lack the resources and they seek assistance. They need assistance. Many of the victims are being held against their will. They may be illegal immigrants and might be afraid to go to the authorities for fear of being deported or prosecuted. Victims of trafficking in persons must be provided with assistance to help them to recover and to help them to reintegrate into society. This morning, therefore, I'd like to congratulate the Ministry of Public Security and the Ministry of Social Protection for their work to develop this national plan of action. Collectively, it is our duty as officials and citizens to make this plan work.
Speaking about the state's responsibility in the protection of its citizens, the President reminded those gathered at the event of a motion that he had presented to the National Assembly when he was opposition leader, calling for the establishment of a commission of inquiry to investigate the crime of trafficking in persons. The motion was adopted but never assented to, and by the then head of state.
The government of Guyana today is solving the problem, not suppressing bad news. We are successfully prosecuting traffickers. We are collaborating with counter-trafficking non-governmental organizations, international organizations, and friendly countries. We are strengthening the interministerial coordination of our efforts. As I pointed out, 7 of the 15 ministries in our cabinet are represented in the task force. We are financing a shelter and enhancing psychosocial services to victims.
Vice President and Minister of Public Security, Mr. Kemraj Ramtatan, too vehemently stated that crime and corruption is not a culture. It is a choice that must be halted at all costs. The minister announced that the Ministry of Finance has allocated some $12 million to aid in the fight against human trafficking.
People must not be stuck in a cycle of negativity and lose hope. We have to dream that this job can be done. The job of halting trafficking, halting violence in all forms, and crime in all its ugly forms.
Minister of Social Protection, Ms. Amna Ali, who has taken over the ministry, said that the human trafficking is a callous industry that exploits and denies victims their basic human rights.
The protection of the human rights and dignity of all persons in Guyana is an essential component of good governance. So I can assure you that our government will, by all means necessary, do what it can to curb this illicit trade. Human trafficking crosses cultures and communities. It has no boundaries. It is imperative for persons within our society to be cognizant that human trafficking is not someone else's problem. Involuntary servitude is not something we can ignore or hope doesn't exist in our communities.
The minister said that together the government, non-governmental organizations, and civil society bodies can give victims, particularly women and children who have been violated, a much-needed voice. She said that a new plan of action provides a victim-centered and rights-based approach in assisting, protecting, and reintegrating trafficking victims into society. U.S. Ambassador to Guyana, Mr. Perry Holloway, said that the U.S. government recognizes Guyana's efforts to combat this scourge and is proud of the country's improved ranking in the 2016 State Department report.
We in the U.S. government are very proud of Guyana's improved ranking in our 2016 Trafficking in Person report. Guyana moved up from the watch list to Tier 2. This improvement recognizes the efforts of the government, the TIP task force, the TIP unit, prosecutors, and the judiciary in combating modern-day slavery. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about the numbers that the analytical team has put together, and first of all, to congratulate them on doing that, because if you don't know the situation and you can't monitor your efforts, it's very hard to see if what you're doing is making a difference. And I think we do share the assessment of the analytic team that the increase you see there, while it, on a percentage basis looks very high, is likely due to increased awareness and reporting. That said, I will tell you that trafficking in persons is probably one of the most underreported crimes in the world, in any country, not just Guyana, United States, or wherever.
The Ministerial Task Force, which comprises several governmental and non-governmental organizations, was created to facilitate the planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of national strategies in response to trafficking in persons. Over the last 3 years, there has been an increase in the number of reported trafficking in persons cases, and this is believed to be largely due to heightened awareness and education on the issue. In 2014, there were 20 identified victims, 59 in 2015, and 98 in 2016. Access to finance, particularly in rural and hinterland areas, will not only support initiatives in the expansion of the local economy in communities across Guyana, but will stimulate youth employment and ensure that communities and villages can become thriving hubs. This according to President Granger, who used the opportunity of the opening of the Republic Bank Guyana Limited's Triumph branch to urge the banking sector to explore the provision of financial options that will be profitable to them and good for the country. The head of state also called on those institutions to take the lead in the provision of capital and credit to help in the acquisition of new green technologies as Guyana transitions into a green economy. The $1.5 billion facility, which is outfitted with energy-efficient lighting and refrigeration flow for air conditioning systems, in keeping with Ghana's Green State agenda, will cater to the banking needs of residents of Regions 4, 5, and 6.
By no means should it signal the end of branch expansion in this region or in this country. There is still great potential for the provision of financial services for the eastward and westward, particularly westward, so as to drive economic development of this part of our coastline and the hinterland. Guyana, despite the increase in the number of bank branches, continues to lag behind our Caribbean counterparts in extending financial services.
He also spoke of the importance of banking services to the development of the newly designated capital towns, Bartica, Lethem, and Mabaruma. In fact, outside of Bartica, the only two hinterland communities with bank branches are Lethem, where there is a Republic Bank branch, and Port Kaituma, where there is a Ghana Bank for Trade and Industry branch. And as a result, residents have to make costly trips to access vital services.
Commercial banks are encouraged to find innovative means and instruments of expanding their services to hinterland communities. The lack of access to banking services in unserved areas presents a serious constraint to income generation activities. It is also a factor which limits the economic development of those regions.
Acknowledging that some communities, because of remoteness and small populace, would not make permanent branches worthwhile, the President informed that his administration is exploring alternatives to traditional banking services that is not viable for banks to establish branches to serve those areas. Some of the options being considered include mobile banking.
Guyana is a land of waters and people living along the river banks, people living in our vast grasslands. And let me boast again, the Rupununi alone is bigger than Costa Rica. People living in those savannas, people living in the rainforest where mining and logging take place. These people need services. Guyana, therefore, more than other Caribbean states, a mainland state, needs to develop systems adapted to its geographical reality. One size does not fit all for us. Mobile banking has proved to be very successful at expanding access to financial services in many countries.
Chairman of the Board of Directors of Republic Bank, Mr. Nigel Baptiste, said that the opening of the Triumph branch solidifies the bank's vision to strengthen relations with the communities between West Berbice and Georgetown.
At Republic Bank, service has defined our corporate character and has differentiated us for over 180 years in Guyana. We are focused in our daily interactions on creating and sustaining the kind of relationships that endure, and on generating mutual trust. We believe that we can only succeed in these relationships if we serve you in a way that best satisfies your needs. At this branch, our customers will enjoy an enhanced banking experience, matched by the service from our friendly, courteous, and knowledgeable staff. This new facility will house 32 of our skilled and competent members of staff, led by the expertise and professionalism of our officer in charge, Ms. Bibi Shaliza Sipasad.
As the future leaders of our country, the nation's youth can be seen as one of the most important groups in society and must therefore be equipped with the adequate resources to be able to march into the future and take up the role of leadership. Yet, the youth of Guyana are also one of the most vulnerable groups in society and are constantly at risk of unemployment, underemployment, crime and violence, teen and unplanned pregnancy, and other social and economic ills. Education is a universal right, and for President David Granger, it is no different in Guyana.
Every child must be in school, and we will do everything possible. If it's a bus, if it's a boat, if it's a bicycle, well, we don't have an airplane yet, but we'll try everything else to make sure our children get to school. But you too must establish programs to ensure that our children get to school, whatever the cost. Nothing could be worse than having a child grow up without education. So that is why we're here. Education is the best thing that can happen to a child.
The head of state, who was the key speaker at the center's Golden Jubilee observance on Thursday, said that every child has the ability to contribute to the nation's development once the barriers to their successes are removed and the opportunities necessary for the development are presented. Insert.
We cannot be equal when many people pursue their selfish interests. And many others, because of some disability, because of poverty, because of illiteracy, or maybe because of lack of opportunity, are left behind. And it is my view that the Tolman Reed Rehabilitation Center embodied that spirit, that desire to prove that we Guyanese, if we are given equality of opportunity, could not only make a better nation, but we can have better households, better families, and better lives for all of our citizens. If we gave each Guyanese child the opportunity to access education, if we gave every Guyanese child the opportunity to be employed, if we gave every Guyanese child the opportunity to be empowered to raise his or her voice, this could be a much happier place.
The president noted that the state has responsibility to its citizens, and as such, his government will not shirk its duty, but will ensure that the necessary systems are in place to support and sustain opportunities, which will ensure that every Guyanese child has the opportunity to pursue his or her development.
Given the opportunity, they could master any field of academia if they are given the opportunity, and if centers like the Tolman Reed Rehabilitation Center and the David Rose School could be equipped to provide the resources and the materials and the infrastructure for them to have that opportunity. The state cannot close its eyes to its responsibility. This center provides services, unique services to children and to persons with who are challenged. It offers services to those with autism and hearing impairment. It also provides prosthetic limbs to those requiring such services. And as you've heard from Colonel Storm, the center's work in producing prosthetic limbs has given many persons a second lease on life, allowing them to live a normal life and to enter into gainful employment or activity. So I would like to congratulate the Ptolemy Reed Rehabilitation Center today. I'd like to wish, on behalf of the Guyanese people, that this center would continue to do the good work which it set out to do half a century ago. I'd like to emphasize first that in terms of education, we will continue to support this center to enable children with challenges to equip themselves with the quality of education that will take them to the second level, and that is the level of employment.
The head of state noted that growing up in an era before independence, where equality was absent for Guyanese people, it is his wish as the leader of the country to ensure that the citizens, particularly the children and youth, have a better society in which they can thrive and grow.
Independence promised us a good life. We all felt then that everything we ever wanted or needed would come to us with independence. But the most important thing we thought about independence is that we would have, for the first time, equality of opportunity. Because the British Guyana that we grew up in was not an equal place. And many persons, even though they did well at secondary school, could not get jobs in some banks and some business places in this country. We could not go to certain clubs. We could not join certain sporting organizations. The fact that we had to create the first secondary school in the hinterland at St. Ignatius. The fact that only 2 weeks ago we could have the first female senior counsel in the history of Guyana means that we constantly have to remind ourselves that we are a very unequal society and we have to take an extra step to bring about equality.
Lieutenant Colonel Randy Storm, chairman of the Board of Directors, delivering brief address, said that it is important that the children of the center and all others across the country be given the necessary opportunities to become the best that they can be. He noted that their challenges do not disqualify them from learning or reaching for greatness.
We have a vision of ramps and lifts at all public and private buildings. Our secretary applied to and was accepted to read for a degree at the University of Guyana. She fell out in the first week. She could not access the classrooms. This is 2017. Treat us right, and we will achieve. Treat us right, and we will succeed. Give us the same opportunity as the others. We need speech therapists, trained special education teachers, occupational therapists, computer teachers, agri-teachers, prosthetic and orthotic technologists. Now we only have technicians, and this is the only organization in Guyana that make prosthetic limbs, both upper and lower, for our children and citizens. We need trained ward sisters. We must produce from here, over the next 10 years, students who are qualified to attend the University of Guyana, the Guyana School of Agriculture, Technical Institute, Teachers Training College, Georgetown School of Nursing, and all other training institutions. And when they get there, they must be able to access their classroom. The graduates of this organization must be able to return to their villages and towns and meaningfully contribute to the development of the state.
The center was originally established in January 1967 by the Ministry of Health to provide rehab services for those children who had suffered residual paralysis during the 1960 and 1964 polio epidemics. The institution has since then developed a comprehensive program for rehabilitation for children with various types of physical and other developmental disabilities. It currently provides services such as physiotherapy, special education, speech therapy, occupational therapy, counseling, and educational services for parents of children in rehabilitation programs and provisions for orthotic and prosthetic appliances for the physically disabled in Guyana. The Ptolemy Reed Rehabilitation Center provides rehabilitation services for over 100 children and 30 adults annually, while its daycare service provides care for up to 35 children and 9 residents. Another component of the facility, the Harold B. Davis School, has 45 students enrolled. Now we take a look at the President's diary. On Monday, President David Granger was paid a courtesy call by the Director of Programs of the Global Environment Facility, the GEF, Dr. Gustavo de Fonseca, and officials from Conservation International Guyana. The director is currently in Guyana for the launch of a program which is primarily aimed at reducing the exposure and use of mercury in artisanal and small-scale mining. Dr. de Fonseca said that the GEF is pleased with Guyana's efforts in pursuing a green economy and that the organization is looking forward to developing a broader and more meaningful relationship with the country.
So this is great that Guyana is taking the step forward and working with us in enabling this to happen. And more importantly, we had a meeting with the President just now in which he reiterated this commitment to a green economy for Guyana. And we want to make green economy the real motto for the work that we provide, the support that we provide to developing countries going forward.
President David Granger on Wednesday accepted the letters of credence from Ambassador-designate of the plurinational state of Bolivia, Mr. Josequin Franco, at State House. President Granger said that the two countries placed great emphasis on the importance of regional integration.
Guyana and Bolivia both adhere strongly to the international values of mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty, mutual non-interference in each other's internal affairs, cooperation for mutual benefit, respect for treaties and international law, and the maintenance of regional peace and security.
Meanwhile, newly accredited Ambassador Franco in his remarks said that the two countries have always shared cordial, friendly relations, and it is that country's hope too that the bonds can be further strengthened for the mutual benefit of Guyana and Bolivia.
It is a profound wish of our President Evo Morales to see the development and deepening of relations with your country, the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. My mission will be to seek fruitful outcomes in all areas of our relationship, with due priority to fostering brotherhood among our peoples and actions in favor of the development to which our peoples fervently aspire.
President Granger on the same day met with Germany's ambassador to Guyana, His Excellency Lutz Hermann Georges, at State House. The ambassador, immediately after the meeting, said that Guyana is a standard bearer for the Caribbean community as the country continues to make headway in the pursuit of the development of a green economy and the sustainable management of its resources in the fight against the climate change and global warming phenomena.
Bilateral, the focus was on Germany's contribution in helping Guyana to achieve the vision of a greener economy and a clean environment. Guyana is, with this present policy, a standard bearer in the whole Caribbean region, And Germany cooperates strongly with CARICOM as a regional organization, but through CARICOM with all the member states of the Caribbean community to achieve that goal, which means energy efficiency, renewable energy, protection of natural resources, biodiversity.
The ambassador noted that the improvements he has witnessed with regard to the beautification of the city and better solid waste management is a sign that government is taking its green state policy seriously. This week in Beyond the Presidency, we take another look at the Self-Reliance and Success in Business Workshop, which is an initiative of First Lady Ms. Granger. The one-week program, supported by the Ministry of Social Protection and the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, is aimed at training women to become better managers and entrepreneurs in an effort to empower them to become their own decision makers. Despite limited financing for her office, the First Lady has been developing and supporting programs which are geared at empowering the vulnerable sections of society, including the children, differently abled, and the elderly. Mrs. Granger said that women have often put themselves down by internalizing the belief that they have no knowledge of business or they are not gainfully employed, when in fact their daily routines can often be comparative to the skills required to run a business.
What I have noticed is many women will tell you, I don't do anything or I don't know anything. Because they might say, okay, well, I have only been staying at home, looking after my parents who are old and can't help themselves. Or I just manage the children, and the thing is, I don't work anywhere. Well, if you're a housewife, you're working from the time you wake up to the time you fall asleep. And the women who are working outside the home and working in the home are managing two businesses. Because I keep saying women are financial planners, because you got to know how the money will last you until the next payday, to feed your children, to pay your utilities, to get them to school if they don't have the buses and bikes, and so on. You have to know how to spread your money out. You have to know how you will get by each day. You're a planner as well. You're a counselor. You have to advise your neighbor and your friend and your sister, your children, when they have disputes, right? You have all sorts of, you have skills.
Using the words of the famous American Martin Luther King, I have a dream, Mrs. Granger told the women that they too can dream as long as they make efforts to turn those dreams into reality.
And one thing I want you as women to realize is that you have many skills, many gifts that you share, and you don't even think about it. Because I think in a sense people have tended to devalue those things which don't have a dollar sign attached to it, which is wrong. So start to look at yourselves as queens, because you are managing, you're governing whatever is a little home or a home and a business. You are managing, you're devoting your time and energies to these things and rationing it out. At the same time, love yourselves. Today I think we celebrate Martin Luther King Day. And I want you to remember that he had a dream. Your dream today is that you can manage and successfully run a business. So I urge you, dream big, but dream realistically.
In his address to the women, Regional Executive Officer Mr. Dennis Jaikaran told the participants that he was looking forward to a successful end of the workshop.
As Regional Executive Officer, I would be happy at the end of this program that there be a multiplying effect of this training in the different communities. And at this level, I want to commit myself to say that out of this program, whatever you plan in your little communities, the help is going to be there so that we can master what we have learned here and to multiply it in the different communities across this region.
With the completion of this batch of participants, it will bring to 400 the number of women who have been trained as entrepreneurs since the commencement of the partnership between the agency and the Office of the First Lady. The new graduates proudly displayed their certificates and spoke highly of the First Lady's initiative, which they deemed an initiative worth taking into communities.
It's a pleasure in thinking about that. My First Lady, she really represents our women in Guyana. And she's just like a mother to our women. And I'm very, very grateful that many of our women who are not well educated and who are educated, that we come to this workshop here and we are well educated about how we can manage our business, how we can go about helping other women in our group and in our region, and we can manage our home more properly, and I'm very grateful for her.
Ms. Kinansani Adams, another of the successful participants, said that the initiative must be applauded and encouraged so that more women can become empowered.
For the First Lady to bring this initiative to women across Guyana, especially women from Region 3, it's a very, very good initiative. Personally, for me, this is something that I've never been a part of. And for her to do something like that, honestly, I am elated. Totally elated, and I do hope that we get more programs like this to better empower women of Region 3 and also women across Guyana.
With that, we have come to the end of this week's edition of This Week with the President. Thank you for joining me. For regular updates on the Ministry of the Presidency, go to our website at www.motp.gov.gy, like our Facebook page, Ministry of the Presidency, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MOTP Guyana. Do have a safe and blessed rest of the week, Guyana. Goodbye.